Welcome to an episode of my Best 11 podcast. Today we are joined by a man who I believe, I know Marv's going to have his opinion in a minute, one of the greatest players to ever grace Kenilworth Road, and arguably even greater than that. Today we're joined by Ricky Hill. Ricky spent a lot of time, most of his career at Luton, then went across to France with Le Havre, Leicester, and finished his career in the States with Tampa Bay, and has had some time as well managing, both over across in the States and in England as well. Ricky is also here because he's got a new book out, which you can see in the background. Those people who have got some, those people have got watching us on YouTube. He's got a new book out called Love of the Game, which is fantastic. And the idea of the book, or the book goes through, which Ricky will talk us through in a minute, is going through the highlights of his journey before, during, and after his playing career, and some memories of success and disappointments on the way. And that book's out on the 15th of March. And get it from any good bookshop, online, a number of places online. And Ricky said if any of our listeners wanted to contact him directly, either DM on Twitter or email him, which is rickyahill@hotmail.com. He will do something personal for each person who wants to buy that book directly from him. So that's enough from me about the book. Let's listen to the man himself. How are you, Ricky?
Very well, thanks, Andrew. Marvellous. How are you, sir?
Well, that's some intro. That's I mean, we've had some intros, but rightly so. Tricks takes the top intro, because, like Andrew said, I've played with many players as you have, Ricky, and over the 15 years I was at Luton, it's a case of that. I've three people really, if I even know, when Andrew said to me about the podcast, three people who I really would love to get on the podcast. 100%, you're one of them. Steve Foster's another one, and my hero, I will never probably get on because obviously he's way out of our ream, is Sir Kelly Dalglish. So, to get one of the three already, hoping to get Fozzie out at some point, is just fantastic for me. So welcome, Tricks.
Oh, thanks, Marv, for that.
Fantastic.
Yeah. How do I follow that now, Andrew? Time to go, right?
Definitely. Save that. Save you going a bit redder. So what those people that haven't listened to the podcast before, what we do is we go through Ricky's best 11 team. He has to have played on the park for the same team with any of these players he picks in his team across his whole playing career. And what we do is go through player by player, and we try and guess as we go as well. So first things first, Ricky, what formation have you gone for?
Yeah, interesting.
There could only be one formation for me, Andrew, Marv, because I think I spoke about it in the book as well. I was at Luton for nearly 15 years as well, Marv, and throughout that time I only played in a 4-4-2 formation for one season. That was when Ray Harford came in, and Ray was a 4-4-2 person. Prior to that, it was always 4-3-3 with Harry Haslam, and also when Davy Peat took over. So for me, it can only be 4-3-3.
4-3-3 it is then.
Is that also a bit of attacking as well?
Always attacking. The point of that was, and the beauty of the 4-3-3 that we played in Luton when I was breaking through and coming through and in the first team, was we always played with three forwards outside of me. And I always considered myself to be an attacking type of player. So that would create a fourth forward in essence at some time. So, for me, that's the only way forward, excuse the pun.
Excellent. So one day Real Madrid manager, the idea you can score 7. It doesn't matter if you concede 6 because you'll score 7. That's the theory.
That's the beauty of the game.
It is. So we'll start off with goalkeepers. So over to you, goalkeeper.
A couple of quick mentions for a couple of goalkeepers that when I was young, breaking into the first team, from an apprenticeship into the first team, would be Keith Barber, who was very kind to me, ex-first team keeper at Luton in the 1970s, 74, 75 period. Affectionately looked out for me, asked me to call him Dad in a term of endearment. That's how much he loved me and wanted me to feel comfortable within the environment of the group. And also Millia Alexic, who passed away, unfortunately, who left to Tottenham in 1978. He was another great man. I was in digs at Mrs. Goss, as you know, Marv, and he would come round, take me out. You know, he was a much senior pro to me, had his family, but he reached out to make sure that I was okay. Yeah, knowing I was there on my own. So those two, special mentions to them. Now we go down to the actual keepers. And we know, been great keepers from that period all the way through. So when I left in 89, so the person I'm going to pick was someone who had a great command of his box. He was possibly the best keeper we've had, in my estimation, in respects to taking crosses. Also, his distribution was incredible, out of his arms or out of his feet, in respects to the dead ball kicking over a long distance with accuracy and a flat trajectory.
Did I play with him?
Marv, you never played with him.
Didn't think I did. I didn't think I did. I think I might have it though. Go on then, and keep going.
So, came to Luton from Aston Villa as a young player, played 50 games, maybe less than 50 at Aston Villa. Was consistent throughout the period that he was with us, very charismatic, good in the dressing room, strong personality.
No, not got it.
I'm going to have a guess. Ron Balaam?
Well, you're about 15 years too early, mate. Ron Balaam, I'm sure. I mean, he might have been in the 50s.
I was going to say.
You've mentioned Harry Haslam. I mean, I'm thinking, I don't know. I don't. That's the only other one I know.
Really?
Go on, Ricky. Who's the man? Who is it?
Give me another. He was blonde.
Oh my gosh. Blake Finley.
You are correct, Marv. That's Marvin.
1-0, Marv. Well done.
You are correct. Jake Finley. I mean, don't get me wrong. Andy Dibble, fantastic keeper. Came as a young lad. Great shot stopper. Very all-round fantastic. Won us the Littlewoods Cup, in my estimation. Yeah. Without that penalty save, that was a turning point. And the other saves along the way, we were really dead and buried. So, you know, Divs, for me, playing with Divs, he was it was only a short period. So I had to go with someone like Jake, who'd been there, or Les Seeley, who also was great for us, and again was part of the major success we had. But with the era that Jake was playing, we had David Pleat just taking over as a manager, but he was that consistent where it gave the rest of the team the platform to go out there and really express ourselves and play some electrifying football every week, in the knowledge that we had a dependable keeper back there who would hold his own. So for me, Jake gets on.
I didn't realize he was really, I mean, as good as what you just said there. When you said about distribution, I'm thinking, I remember Dibs being very good as well, quite distributed, but I'm thinking it's not going to be Dibs. I don't think it's going to be Dibs. It'd be close because, like you just said, you didn't really have that span of playing a long time with Dibs. So no. I remember Jake. I don't remember him. I didn't realize he was that good of distribution.
Yeah. I mean, we felt comfortable, Marv, every time. You know, it just the trajectory of his kicking, you know, and his throwing was powerful. A good arm, led people into the ball as opposed to hitting them with the ball. So the accuracy of stuff. So for me, I mean, it could have been any of them, but I had to pick one. And again, it's always going to be subjective opinions because, you know, I hate to do this, and I've been there 14 years, and there's so many great players that I played with that I can't get in the 11. So I apologise now before we even go any further.
Ricky, it's your 11. Listen, if they didn't get in, right, I said before, they're not good enough. It's not your fault. You pick them.
Well, I don't know if that's right. It's splitting hairs now, Marvis. Splitting hairs on a number of them.
Well, you made it in, I think, in every single person so far we've had who played in your era, you made it into all of their teams, Ricky. So
I'm flattered.
There's some fantastic players we've had on so far, and that's fantastic to see. So defense wise,
moving on.
It's
So
right or left, you can go wherever you like.
We'll go with the right back. And
Okay.
again, numerous players to choose from. This particular one, for me personally, great in respects to allowing me to go and express myself, never being concerned about the other side of the ball, recovering too deep to go and help him. Yes, of course, we were taught you had to double up on any outside left that was up against the right back. You'd have to give them support. But generally, if I wasn't there, it wouldn't be an issue. I wouldn't get my head chewed off. He's someone who played at the highest level with a tenacity for training, for match days, so competitive, great in the air. Played even though he had two knees that had no anterior cruciates in them, but you would never have known. He is powerful.
Got it, Andrew?
Got it, Andrew?
It can be air. I've narrowed it down to a couple.
I'm a clue, aren't I? Am I a clue to the next?
No.
Oh, that's not who I thought it was then.
Yeah, exactly. Done you, man.
Right. I'm going to throw a name out there. I'm going to go Ashley Grimes.
Left back, Andrew.
Left back, are you? We're talking
Was
right
he?
back. Come on.
I thought he was right back.
It is early. It is early, Ricky.
All right. Love.
Yeah, Andrew. Yeah. You just cross them over. No, he's right back.
All right.
Yeah, right back. Yeah, I'm pretty
Go on, Marv. Go on, Marv. Having a giggle at me.
It's not.
I'll give you another clue then. I'll give you another clue.
Go on.
Blonde.
Tim Breaker.
No.
Oh, at least he was blonde and right back.
Yeah, but he didn't have those knee injuries. He didn't have those knee injuries.
Right.
Oh, see, I don't know enough about knee injuries and stuff to say that. That's why.
I should get this.
Fuck.
Definitely get this.
I'm not going to get it, Rick. Go on.
No.
Go on. Better out of misery.
Nickname Basher?
Oh, Kirk Stevens.
There you go.
Kirk Stevens.
I gave it away to you.
You did. I've got to start thinking of that era. Basher, exactly, yes.
Kirk, it's close. Kirk, Tim, Rob Johnson, any of the above would have been fantastic because they were tremendous players. They were tremendous help to me. Tim was a marauding fullback with great athleticism, great energy, good quality on the ball, discipline. So Rob was the same, but Kirk was in that era again where we played, in my estimation, the most attractive football that suited me. That was my best period, I think, in my 15 years at Luton, was that 78 to 83, 84, 85 period where it was just all out, attacking the verve. So Kirk would get it.
Kirk would get him. Just leading on to what you just said there about the way you played, Ricky. So was that Harry Aslam then? Was that Harry Aslam? Was that with that first group? And then when David Pleat come in, was it very much the same thing? Excuse me, very much the same thing?
Harry had a similar philosophy in regards to, it was about us, never being too concerned about the opposition of what they're going to do. We never really catered our game to stop people playing. We catered our game to try to go and win the game. Harry had an older squad at the time that he was working with, and he played a more conventional, slightly a 4-4-2 come 4-3-3 with Jimmy Ryan. Obviously, that became manager and great Jim on the right-hand side. But then we had John Aston on the left-hand side, who was an outside left, out-and-out European Cup winner for Man United. So, and then when David took over, I think he modelled his side on what Nottingham Forest had done. At the time, we didn't realise the similarities. John Robinson on the left wing with Birtles and Tony Woodcock as the two forwards, Martin O'Neill on the right side, tucking in. So, and then we did similar thing with Mossy, obviously, fantastic on the left, two strikers, and me tucked in on the right with either Paddy, Nobby, Nico, eventually Lil. So it was a 4-3-3, but it was always geared towards having the 3 forwards with an attacking purpose, as opposed to the 4-5-1 that we see now, Marv, that's regularly used. They claim it's a 4-3-3, but they drop the wingers back in and make it a 4-5-1. So I think David Pleat was the real one that, for me, encouraged that stylistically. But the flip side to that was I never played on the right side of midfield in my life before coming to Luton. I was always a centre midfield player at school, and growing up through my childhood, I was Johnny Giles or Billy Bremen. I was to control the game. I was a computer of it. But then coming to Luton now, and the way the stylistically where teams were playing with holding midfielders solely as defensive support from behind type things, that kind of, I only had to modify my game to say, well, let me go and try and see if I can play on the right, into, out, use my energy, get involved in the game and see what happens from there. So yeah, it was perfect for me, 4-3-3. And I think it kind of showed my talents to a degree.
But later on, I mean, again, when I got into the team, and when we've had a couple of guests on here, they're talking about, this player played for Luton, bigger hero, and I'm trying to think who it is, and they go, "Look, you can't guess who it is." I went, "No," and they're going, "It's Ricky." I went, "Ricky played in the middle. I always know Ricky as centre midfield. I don't know Ricky as on the right." I said, and I'm thinking from my days when I played, you were in the middle, like you've just spoke about from your school days, controlling the game, like dictating things. I don't remember you playing on the right. Which is weird.
because I was supposed to be on the right, but I was never on the right. You just want to get involved with the game. I mean, this is why in this modern era, I don't think I could play for certain managers. Because they religiously stop you from venturing outside of your particular zone. I was one that was allowed to maraud, because if I felt the danger, if I felt an opportunity there, I look at some of the highlights occasionally, and I'm on the outside left or I'm on the inside left, and I'm technically supposed to be a right midfielder. But no one complained, no one even mentioned it. People just slotted across and filled in if I wasn't there. Kirk or Tim would say, "Don't worry, just make a diagonal run to recover." Rob, and so I just got involved in the game, and David allowed me to do that. So all credit to him, all kudos to him.
I was going to say that it's great man management by David to see that you're affecting the game, right? Obviously, I'm sure if you wasn't affecting the game in the way what you was doing, he would tell you about it. But again, he didn't turn around and he could have easily gone, "Well, no." Like I have heard, like the so-called Pep Guardiola goes, "No, you go and play here. This is your job. You do this, you do that." So interesting.
Different. I guess it's a different era as well, Mark, because in our times it was keepers were allowed to pick the ball up. Both defensive would squeeze up, keepers would kick it. It would be scramble then. Every man for himself, right? So you get a touch now and again just by the ball breaking loose, and you'd have to hunt it down and push someone out the way and then try to do something creative. So now it's this dropped out, expansive, no pressure up the forwards. I mean, Marv, when you have got in the side, then 2 forwards up front, if you were up against, they would be tearing across the pitch trying to stop you from playing, and you would do your famous, "I'm going to kick it," and you just drag it inside them. No, I'm not. Beautiful. Oh, I always remember that as a young player, you had that confidence within your ability to not panic and just kick the ball anywhere up the pitch. You was always cultured in your thinking of, I see that, don't like that, and you was comfortable driving it in midfield, which is, I mean, I didn't play
that was the Luton way, which I'm sure, like similar to yourself, that you were taught that way. I mean, I know we're digressing here, but I just wanted to just get one more question in. Is it true that when you made your debut, you was playing pool in the room?
You'd have to buy the book.
You was.
You'd have to buy the book, mate.
Oh, okay.
No, only joking. Yeah, them days as apprentices, you know what it's like, Marv. You're in a room. I've been there 5 months. I've been at the club 5 months. I played 13 reserve games. I played for the youth team on a Saturday. I'm doing my jobs every day regularly. So we're playing pool while the first team have had their lunch, come down to room to relax and watch the telly for a little while. So the first team can start walking out the door. So as they walk out the door, I'm playing pool, and the lads the apprentices are all there. And then Roy McCrowan's the first team coach. He comes out last after he rounds everyone up. As he walks past, he just turns his head like that and says, "You're with us today," and kept on walking. So then I'm like, and everyone's like, looked at me, "What's going on?" So I've took the cue and I've handed it to the first person. I've walked into the room and I've just snuck into the corner. Them days there's only one sub. So then all the eyes are on you because you're like, "Whoa, what's this about?" And so, went into the room. That was it, mate. Got on with 20 minutes to go, 22 minutes, made a goal, scored a goal.
And you're what age? What age
17. I was 17 in March, and that was April. So 17 and 1 month.
Wow. Baptism of fire, or were they nice when you went into that room?
All the boys couldn't have been nicer. Came over to congratulate me for being involved with them. Everyone came down. Then Eric Morecambe came down, told a couple of jokes. As he was walking out, he said to me, "Good luck, sunshine." And I said, "Thanks, Mr. Morecambe," and out he went. And, I didn't expect to get on. The strange thing about that debut is, you never really think, I've never been a sub before, really, for anything. So I don't know what to expect. So I didn't know what to do with the warm-up. So, okay, Dad would tell me what he wanted, crosses or shots, whatever else. So I'm got on the bench and I'm sitting there and I'm just watching the game, from a lower perspective than I normally am in the stands. And then suddenly John Faulkner went down with 20 odd minutes to go. And before physio even got out, he said, "That's his dodgy knee, he's off." And I kind of went, so he ran over there as quick as he could do, got there 3 seconds later, he looked across, he went, and Harry Hassan just said to me, "You're on." And as I got up, the crowd just, there was an inhale, like like, who is this? And I couldn't blame them. No one would know who I am. I've never played for the first team, never been involved. And then obviously I made a good impression. And from then it was, who's this kid? And let's go forward.
Brilliant.
Yeah, fabulous. So we'll get back to the team and we'll get to some more stories in a minute. Left back.
Okay.
Ashley Grimes.
So he's definitely in the frame, without a doubt.
Because he's a left back, yeah?
He's a left back there. He's a left back. And he's a quality left back. So this person was deemed, after his medical, to be the perfect physical specimen for an athlete after his medical at the club. So that's a clue in itself, Marvellous. He's not homegrown.
Right.
Okay. He had a long throw. Another clue. I'm not going to make it too easy. Definitely left-footed. Nice range of pass. He was also another situation whereby he got into the papers for the wrong reason. We played Queen's Park Rangers away. And after the match, he walked through a glass pane of glass that he thought was open. And he walked straight through it. Andrew wouldn't know who this is. All right. He's was joined Luton at 17, I think, signed from a team outside of England.
I haven't got it.
He was at Mrs. Goff's.
Ooh.
Again, it's not helping Andrew.
It is. It's
he played
Mike.
for...
Mike. Is it Mike? No.
No. He played for Charlton, Leeds, Crystal Palace. He then went on to become head of coach education for one of the home countries.
That's thrown me. I don't. You have to remember. What age was you at Mrs. Goff? 17, 18?
I was there 16 through.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to remember all the only people I remember is, and he's not. It's Gary Parker and yourself. That's all I remember.
All right, so you won't remember that. They won't remember this one for sure.
No.
He played for Wales.
Oh. No, I
Before
thought you back. Not Hazelwood. Is it Mike?
Mark,
is it Mike Hazelwood?
Mark
Hazelwood. That's it.
Mark Hazelwood.
I thought he was a centre back. Tricky, no? Was he not a centre back?
He played centre back in a 3 at times.
Right.
Centre back at a 2, but he played left back predominantly for us when he first
Mark
came.
Hazelwood, yeah. Wales, yes, I remember him.
I picked him. Yeah, he was with me.
Oh, okay.
Before you, Marv. Before Mick Sachs.
Wow.
Yeah, so when he came up from Wales, he came and stayed with me at Mrs. Goss.
Okay.
What wonderful specimen. 6'3", lean, great left foot, strong. Yeah, could do everything relatively well. I don't know why the club were anxious to sell him or when they sold him, because he played a great part in our evolution through into becoming into from League One or Division 1 or Division 2 to Division 1. He was immense there. But again, before, I could have easily picked Steve Buckley, who was prior to Mark, and he was the swashbuckling, modern day fullback back in the 70s. He could shoot from anywhere, could drive with the ball, a powerful fella, 14 and a half stone of muscle from Derby. Alan Buckley was his brother.
Yeah.
From Grimsby, and he was a quality player. Or you could have picked Ashley, you could have picked Rob, could have picked Richard Money. So, there's been a number of great players that have played left back for us. But I just thought, because of my relationship with Mark,
right,
and what a great guy he was, I went to his wedding in Newport. I was the only player to go down there and visit and stay with him. And I just thought he was a quality player at a time when we were both young, trying to find our way into the game, trying to find our way as first team players. And, for me, he was probably the best that I played with at that stage.
Excellent. So moving on to centre backs.
I don't want to do this one, Andrew. I got
Why you can upset a couple of people.
I've got too many to choose from. Yeah, and that's the
Just
truth.
think, who was the most difficult to train against? That's the way I reckon you should look at it.
I never really got.
I think if you give them honourable mentions, I mean, listen, it's difficult at the best of times, but you give them honourable mentions. I mean, I think that's
for sure.
Fine.
Everyone's got to pick a team.
Yes.
So I picked this person. Apart from being outstanding, obviously, apart from being a great leader, a great man, a good personality, he was someone who didn't, if he doesn't mind me saying, he enjoyed football, didn't enjoy training as much, but would train and would train hard, but he loved the match days. He loved that competitive time when he stepped into the arena like a gladiator, and he'd play 4 games a week and not complain. He'd play 1 game and have to train 4, and he'd complain. Why are we training? So he was. You probably know who it is straight away, Mark.
No, I don't know.
What do you mean? He was Captain Fantastic at one stage. I'm giving it away now. You've already mentioned him in this address. So he's the first one that I would pick as my centre half.
Andrew, you got it, Andrew.
Fozzie?
Yeah.
Steve Foster. What was it like when he came in? Obviously, because he wasn't a homegrown player. What was it like when he came in? Did the boys? Cause obviously, you were there when he joined the club. Did the boys go, "Oh, here we got somebody here," or was it kind of? Because I know he didn't come from a huge club and kind of work his way down. Do you know what I mean? He was still on his way up.
Yeah.
What did you guys say in the dressing room?
Our job's to play, Andrew. Marv will tell you, a lot of the times as players, when people came in, we didn't really give too much of an analysis on what they've done previously or who they are, what we expect from them. We treat as we find, or we did, and with someone like Fozzie came in at the same time as Mick, as Minnie, as Nico, and it was just like a breath of fresh air when they came in. We felt rejuvenated. We weren't doing great during that season, and Fozzie was outside of the first team at Villa at the time. I think Mick might have been in and out at Birmingham at the time, and obviously David was a young lad coming through at Walsall, and Nico likewise at Palace. So it was one of those whereby we knew, obviously playing against him, how dominating he could be, and he was. He'd been part of the England setups. From the 82, went to the World Cup, I believe, in 82. Ron Greenwood, or he was in and around the squad at that stage. So we knew he was of a caliber. We also knew that he was someone who, in an old-fashioned way, could head it, boot it from a centre half perspective, and boot that physical element that competed, that was not going to back down from anyone, that was up for any challenge, and people don't, and I've always said about Fozzie, his footballing ability, he underplayed it. He chose to underplay it. He was gifted with his touch, his passing, his timing, was all those things that you look at for players, irrespective of their positions. Fozzie had them in abundance, but he would say, okay, I know what I'm good at. I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop people from playing. I'm going to organize people. I'm going to demand from others in a nice way, in a proper way, in terms of, yeah, come on, we can do this together. It's a collective unit. And for us, it was like, wow, fantastic. We had that with Nobby when we got up, and then Nobby had gone. And then Fozzie came in, took the mantle. We had that again. And, irrespective of our individual ability, we became a better team from just having his involvement being there.
Yeah.
Special mentions now. Special mentions quickly, though.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you'd wait till you got to the other centre back.
No, I've got to do it on this side because there's another side. There's special mentions on the other side too.
All right, go.
So on this side, for me, Paul Elliott. Look, when Paul Elliott came at 19 years old, he had everything and more to be the top centre half, of in a modern era.
Yeah.
Quick, no one could out-jump him, no one could outrun him. Brave, tough, and he could have gone to heights that we would be here now and be amazed at. Unfortunately, injury took that opportunity away from him. Likewise with the other person I'm going to mention now is Mick Saxby, who for me, great friend, brother, in Mrs. Goff's again, Marv, wonderful human being, character, but ability-wise, we talk about modern footballers, and people talk about John Stones and those who could play the ball. Mick had that ability to be able to play the ball like a midfielder in terms of creative. He's thoughtful in possession. He wasn't content with just by hitting the front man. He would be confident enough to bring the ball down and play into midfield and play out wide and support from there. Tough, great in the air. And again, for me, he would have been, myself got in the England side, Walshy got in the England side, Brian got in the England side during that period of time in that era. Mick was part of that group. And for me, there's no doubt in my mind that if injury didn't have that cruel fate of taking Mick away for a long period of time, he would have been in that mix as well in terms of in and around the international arena. So Paul definitely, Mick definitely, but I can't get him into my 11 at this moment in time.
Fantastic. So the other side, the other central defenders.
So this person would be, you'd say, a Rolls Royce of a defender. Someone who never looked flustered. I played against the best strikers in the division at the time. I never saw any of them get the better of him on a one-on-one situation whereby, certain games, our forwards always tortured some defenders. So a Walshy or a Brian or a Mossy. I never saw anyone give this person a hard time in respects to getting the better of him on one-on-one situations. Yes, we may have conceded goals. We conceded goals regularly. That wasn't the fault of necessarily centre-backs or the full-backs. It was just the way we played in the expansive manner that we played. But this person, comfortable on the ball, great reader of the game. Yes, he was. Are you coming in now, Marv? Interjecting straight away for 2 points?
Ow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mal Donaghy.
Luton's most capped player, I think, isn't he? Statistically.
Really?
Rightly so.
Yeah, in terms of when he played for the club, he's the player who's won the most caps for his country whilst playing for Luton, I think. And
deserved every single one of them. He was, consistency personified. I never saw Mal get, in my estimation, playing with him, he would never be less than an 8 out of 10 in my estimation, the games that I played with him. And that's over 200, maybe 300 odd games we played together. And that's, you know, the level of the performance that he had. Quiet, unassuming, but that character, that drive, that determination, you know, you can't buy that. Honourable mentions, just pretty quickly. Paul Futcher, again, I was a young lad coming through, got into the first team. Paul was in the team when I made my debut, was then sold quite quickly afterwards to Man City for a lot of money with Ron, his brother. But in terms of the tools for a defender, both-footed, composure, fantastic, could pass over short, long distance with great accuracy, with both feet, read the game well, and could compete in the air. So he had everything that that was important, that was necessary. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. He passed away sadly a few years ago. But he made that move to Man City, got in England under 21s and had, did well. And I think he might have picked up an injury that again stopped him from potentially going to the heights I would have envisaged that he would have been able to ascend to. But wonderful footballer. I didn't play long enough with him to have him over Mal in my team at this moment in time.
Excellent. You mentioned just a minute ago about yourself, Brian, and Walshy getting involved in the England setup and stuff. And that's what I want to just touch on there a little bit, is that you got your first cap, was it in 82? Yes, yeah. 82, was it? Yeah, on the 82. And you, I didn't realize, 23, Ricky, 23 now. And I'm thinking, I didn't realize that until I looked it up, that you're playing in the top division. Where was your head at? Was you thinking, because I've mentioned this to other people when we put it on the podcast about your career, that Ricky should have easily gone to a Tottenham or Arsenal. I don't understand that. I don't understand, but I'm now even more so when I'm finding out that you're 23, which is young Ricky, in my opinion, 23, a full international. Now, I don't understand how that didn't progress into maybe a big top club. Or have you never really thought about it?
No, I've done nothing but think about it, Marv. you and I spoke yesterday about, just the difference it makes in your life if you have had that association with a top six club. And it's no disrespect to Luton or my career, or it wouldn't have, my career might not have been any more further enhanced in terms of my playing career, because I was respected and renowned for being with Luton and recognised as a Luton Town player. So, there's no harm and there's no shame in it from that perspective. But by moving to a big top six club, it gets you then into a different arena in terms of popularity, in terms of world recognition, in terms of those type of things, which after your playing career also come into effect. Because, if I was at Manchester United, hypothetically, there might be opportunities that I would do work for Manchester United right now, whether that's going overseas and coaching at the clinics that they have throughout the whole globe, in Thailand, in China. I might be someone that they would call upon to do that. I might be involved in corporate entertainment for them, to do some corporate days for them. But because I was with Luton, and Luton don't have that capacity right now to bring people in to do those things, it's kind of, again, from your next set of your life, you move on. But going back to your question, Marv, I was so happy playing. I was so happy to be given a chance, because, when I never thought when I was growing up I would be able to get into football, because I didn't see many black players playing. There was West Ham had three, Clive Best, Ali Coker and Clive Charles, when I was 13 years old. But they were the only three. And Paul Reaney at Leeds was mixed race. And, but in football, we saw match of the day and big match. So there'd be 5 matches over the weekend, and you'd very rarely see someone that looked like you. So I'm thinking, I really want to do this. I don't know how I'm going to get into this thing. I'm good enough, I believe, that I'm going to get an opportunity. And then on top of that, I had Steve Gattin, who played for Arsenal, who was in my year group at school, and we went through the year, all 5 years at secondary school. He went to a trials at Middlesex when he was 14.
I broke my wrist.
He went to Brighton, but he started at Arsenal, Marv.
Right.
Okay. So he went to trials at 14 at the county trials. I had broken my wrist and I couldn't go to the trials. Steve was selected for the county team. Then he got picked up at Arsenal as a schoolboy. And Steve and I are in the same team. And people would suggest that, he's a fantastic player at that age. We both were decent. But they would imagine if he got into a professional club, I should have also had the opportunity. But I didn't. And I didn't know where it was going to come from. And it was just by chance, by playing out in Hitchin, that I actually got spotted. But going back again to the actual question, I know I was so happy to play. I was so happy to be involved with a group of great lads that I never really looked upon myself as being anything different, anything above. I always remember Coatsy one pre-season coming up to me. And, I loved Coatsy, he was assistant manager. He said, "Ricky, I'm so glad you're here." I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "I'm so glad you're here." I said, "What do you mean?" "I'm contracted." Because I thought he just said, "I'm fed up with this. I want to go to a bigger club. I want to go." It hadn't crossed my mind, man. I didn't have an agent. I was just happy to play, delighted to be with good lads. And then, but as you go on, and I received a phone call at 19 from Arthur Cox. And he said, "Ricky," I was at home in Cricklewood and picked up the phone and he says, "Is that Ricky Hill?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Arthur Cox, Newcastle United." I said, "Hi, Mr. Cox." I just want to know if you'd be willing to come up to Newcastle and play for the Geordie people. So I'm saying, yes, Mr. Cox, I'll defy any young player to say no, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, of course I would. Yeah, Mr. Cox, yeah. He said, "Well, David knows what we think about you. We'll be in touch." Didn't hear another word, Mark. So that was when I was 19.
19, Newcastle,
So,
Newcastle United.
Yeah, Newcastle United. So, that was the times before Wadler and Gaza. But it was that era when Arthur Cox was building that type of team, Kevin Keegan and whatever else, right? But I wasn't bothered because I was still playing. So I didn't go to the manager and start knocking on his door and saying that. But as time went on and people were moving, Paul went and Walshy went to Liverpool and Dave went to Man City and other people. But that was later on when I went to Man United and Chelsea. But I kind of other people was leaving and thinking, okay, but I never once was in that position where I really felt aggrieved enough to say, well, I want to move. I want to do better. I want to do this and that. So the answer to the question is, I think there was interest. I know there was interest from Newcastle when I was 19. I know there was other teams.
19. See what I mean? And again, that's great. This is like one of the reasons why I love doing these podcasts, because like being a teammate of yours or whatever, I never knew of that. And I'm sure a lot of the supporters never are going to just hear this now. It's like 19 Newcastle were like, manager was on the phone to you.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that's passed by and you don't look back in regret. I mean, as I say, but you never know what could have taken place if these things happen.
No, definitely. And I know Steve Shaw, Nick Waldock and Rich Robinson all thank Marv for that question. So we did put out on Twitter a load of questions. I don't know if you saw that. And we had an influx of questions to our email, which was fantastic. Question I want to ask you on the same kind of topic, Ricky, while we're on this kind of area. Which club, if you could have gone to anybody in that kind of mid-80s era, or kind of early 80s, which club do you think would have suited you the best? And which club do you think you'd have had the most success? Because it's not necessarily the biggest on paper club, is it? Because it's about the way that you played. So which club do you think you'd have had the most success at?
I think I would have probably had 3 to choose from, in my humble opinion, where I would have fitted into this scheme of things. One would have been Ipswich, because again, David Pleat told me, and again, it was unbeknown to me, Bobby Robson used to put his arm around David Pleat every time he saw him and said, "When are you going to sell me your boy Hill?" And ask him, "When are you going to sell me your boy Hill?" So that was Sir Bobby, and how much that he rated me obviously was shown by the fact that in his manager and his first ever squad that he named, he picked me in it. And I'd come up from the Division 2 into Division 1. Hadn't played a game in Division 1 yet, and he named me in that squad. So that kind of reinforced what David said was true. The second team would have been Tottenham, because I think with Glenn being there and just Tottenham, for me, Arsenal was the team which was, George Graham with a different style of play, and it's more of a, not as creative, not as aesthetically beautiful in terms of the way that they played the game in that era. Although Liam Brady and those were there, so maybe I'm doing them a little bit disservice. But Tottenham had that little bit of je ne sais quoi, whereby, that White Hart Lane, Glenn Hoddle being there, and Ozzy, even if it was before Ozzy, they always had stylistic players. Jimmy Greaves from Jimmy Dees Grays, Mickey Hazard, Vinnie Samways.
Yeah.
It was that kind of elegant as well as that quality. So Tottenham would have been one that I would have definitely, if I had an agent during that time, to find out from Tottenham if they'd be interested in me or not. And in the book, there is a little passage regarding Tottenham later on, which I won't give away right now.
Yes, don't give that away. Don't. Yes, don't.
Yeah, definitely.
And then the last one would possibly be West Ham, because West Ham were also the West Ham way. They were the academy of football from the 1966 World Cup, when they had the three players, Best, Peters, and Moore, and they were renowned for playing football in a certain manner. John Lyall and Ron Greenwood before him. And those type of people were. It was always in my mind, West Ham were a team, and I supported Leeds. So Leeds obviously would have been something I would have liked, but London, I'm a London boy. West Ham was Trevor Brooking, and I thought I could fit into there. And again, I think I had admirers there during that period of my career when I was in the second division. I believe I had admirers from Ron Greenwood and also John Lyall's time. So those are the three teams that, for me, I would have felt I would have suited in nicely. And again, Forest likewise. Yeah.
Did Pleaty ever try and take you to Tottenham?
Again, it's not in the book. But
is that in the book?
Right? Is that in the book? It's not in the book. But but great. So again, I don't want to do anyone a disservice and speak badly. It's not that kind of show. But yes, David left, and obviously his career was built at Luton. He did ever so well in terms of recruitment, putting the sides together and keeping on refreshing and replenishing those sides. Had a great eye for talent, picked players from non-league like Kirk and Mal and Paul Elliott and Paul Walsh as youngsters, put them in, Bob Hatton, you name it, Nobby, Paddy, he was a fantastic guy, Mossy. And he then was elevated up from the manner of how we played, which was only right. If Graham Taylor became England manager, then in my estimation, David Pleat should have been there before Graham. And that's not being disrespectful to Graham, but just from the way that David spoke about the game, how he knew the game, how he taught the game, he should have been there. So he got an opportunity to go to a bigger club, and no one's going to complain that he left.
Yeah.
After his first year, and they had the 49-goal Clive Allen first year, right? And 4-5-1, did great things. My contract expired. And he spoke to me about coming to Tottenham. And it would have been quite simple for David to take me, contract expired. And we spoke, and we spoke about things. And he said, you know what, Rick? He said, if I bring you, I may have to change the style slightly, because he plays a 4-5-1, Wadsler and Stevie Hodge on the wings, and Glenn offers someone. So he was in his mind mulling, how could I fit in? So he was choosing between me and Johnny Method, and he went with Johnny Method because he was a defensive midfielder. And it didn't work out for Johnny because he had a back injury, and I didn't actually go to Tottenham either at that time. So that was he made overtures to it, but he didn't follow through. He had to make a choice for best for him and the team, and he done that, which is his prerogative.
And this is not being disrespectful to Johnny and Method, is that you're both totally different players, aren't you?
Yeah.
Totally different. Now, if he would have said, well, I'm choosing like so-and-so, and you thought to yourself, well, hold on a minute, he's similar to me, then you feel a bit aggrieved.
At least you knew it was a tactical decision rather than a personnel decision.
Yeah. And again, it's difficult. Maybe I'd had a couple of injuries. Well, I had one injury, which was the one before or the biggest game that we lost, as far as I'm concerned, when we lost 4-3 in the replay against Watford in the FA Cup. I think the year they got to the final, it might have been. I'm not sure. But we drew 2-2 at Kenilworth Road, and then we came in on Sunday and we done some training, and he said, right, time to go in, or you can do some extra shooting and crossing. And like we normally do, Marv, we always stood out and done extra because that's just what we wanted to do. It's fun. Yeah. And I took a shot and I damaged my hamstring. I thought it was my hamstring, but unbeknown to me, I had this ossification growing between my muscles, like bone that had congealed, blood that had congealed and formed into bone. And it was lying between my hamstring muscles and on the side of my thigh. I had 2 areas, and it was unbeknown to me. And they treated it as a hamstring injury for a couple of weeks. And then I thought I could do full stretches. I could do everything. I could run, but as soon as I tried to run and stride out a little bit more, I would get a poke in my hamstring, and it would get sensitive and swell. Anyway, it was calcification, which is like just bone. I had to have the operation at the end of the year, end of that season. I missed going to the England Down Under tour in Australia, Andrew, where you are, funny enough. And because of that, Bobby Robson called me and said, Rick, I spoke to the surgeon. He thinks it's best you have the operation. So I'm not going to take you, but you're still in my plans. And, from there, the remedial treatments are different now to it was then. Yeah. There's so much more information, so much more sports science that you could test, when you're back to full strength, when you need to do what, the stats are there and the information's there. It wasn't there when I was there. So it was 2 weeks for the stitches and then 4 weeks rehab. And then I was back playing. I went to Sweden on loan to Västerås in Stockholm, just outside Stockholm. And I shouldn't have gone, but because it wasn't enough time for it to heal. And then 6 months later, they formed back again in exactly the same places. And again, that was when Brian and Paul got selected for their England thing. So I missed out again. So that put me back again. I had to take it out, and they put your body fat over it to make sure it doesn't grow back again. And touch wood, from that moment, they never came back. But in my own mind, I felt that I was still mobile, but my explosive speed, I was quite decent at one night. I felt a difference in it. And I've never done anything privately to build up the muscles to check it or at all, because I didn't know. I just continued to play. So I modified my game slightly, passed it a little bit more than I used to dribble, pick my moments when to dribble. So it just played a bit cuter. But yeah, it's one of those.
Fantastic. So what we can do is pause here for a break.
Yeah.
And then when we come back for the second half, we'll hear the rest of Ricky Hill's best 11.
Ricky Hill's new book, Love of the Game, The Man Who Brought the Rooney Rule to the UK, is out now. Get it in all good bookshops, as well as places like Amazon. A My Best 11er listener special, if you contact Ricky directly via email or Twitter at Ricky A. Hill, or email him at rickyahill@hotmail.com, and he is more than happy to sign one personally for you. So jump on board, contact Ricky, and buy this book.
Fantastic. So we're back for part 2 of Ricky Hill's My Best 11. So far, we've had Finley, Stevens, Hazelwood, Foster, and Donaghy. So Ricky's playing 4-3-3. Over to you, Ricky. Midfield. I don't know how you're going to play. You're going to play holding or 2 holding, or how you're going to do it. I'll let you go.
I'm going to play 1 holding, 2 into out, right and left midfielders. Play from inside to outside. Okay. So we allow the fullbacks to maraud on the outside. You tuck in, drag them in, and play progressively. That width comes later on, as opposed to having that created initially from the get-go of the performance. I like that. Yeah. I like that formation for me personally, because you get more chance to interlink. You've always got an option nearby to play little triangles in the centre field, allow their defence to collapse inwards because you're penetrating through the centre, and then you've got the space on the outside for the fullbacks or anyone drifting there to play. So that's how we grew up playing. And that suited my game, and I love that formation. Even now, I would play.
Is that a little hint? Is Ricky putting himself in his 11? Is that a little hint there? Are we good?
No.
I knew you wasn't. That's why I was confident I could ask that question. I knew you wasn't. People have been on the social media of saying, "Oh, the great man deserves to put him." I knew he was never going to do that. He's far too a humble guy to do this. Anything like that.
Can't, Marvelous.
Right.
It's not right. So this
Right,
person,
holding mid.
we start with a holding mid. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
So
I was up to you. It's your turn. No, I thought you.
Holding mid's good. Holding mid's good,
Okay.
Marvelous. So this person, again, leader, right-footed, but can play off both sides, which, any midfield player worth his salt would try to do that anyway. And this person could do that. Very tenacious. He was a great tackler, but he wasn't one of those people that went to ground unnecessarily so. He was a very smart player, reader of the game. His anticipation and his soccer IQ was such whereby he wouldn't have to be on the stretch all the time or commit himself. He was a captain over a period of time. Do you know who?
Andrew?
It is? Andrew?
You know?
No, I'm still thinking.
Go on then. Go on, carry on, Rick.
Yeah. Led us to glories. Came from Port Vale originally.
Went on to manage.
Went to another club before coming to us. From Port Vale to someone and then to us, and then went on to then come back to Luton and take a few of our players away from us to go and help his side when he became a manager.
Why am I so stumped by this?
And they were young, up and coming players. One that I'm going to mention in a minute also. He took them, gave them, and they all went on and done really well, had careers, great careers, played in cup finals. And he was...
I'm worried about saying names now after you ribbing me for right and left back.
Don't be shy, Andrew. You got your miles and 2 up. You got to come in there. You got to be brave. You got to come in.
Brian Horton.
Yeah?
Brian Horton.
Absolutely correct.
See?
Yeah, you got to take the chance. Take the plunge, Andrew.
Listen, you got to be that choir boy and just sing. Go on, just come out with
Exactly. Faint heart never won fair lady, right?
Brian Horton.
The
man who spoke very highly of you on social media as well the other day when we said you were coming on.
Again, as a young player, as a young midfielder who wants to impress, that wants to play for England, he was someone that gave me that buffer, that confidence, that belief to go out and do what you do. Don't worry about anything else. You go and affect the game. You go and do what you do. I've got you. I'll be here behind you whenever you need me. I'll be pushing on. So for me, it couldn't have been someone. Paddy was great. Paddy was very similar. Paddy Grealish, another one who sadly passed away. But Nobby just had that little edge over Paddy in terms of that experience that he'd gained from doing the same thing at Brighton and at Port Vale prior to that. And his quality was what's the word? He was underappreciated at times for his football ability. He wasn't just that holding midfielder. He was a creative holding midfielder. His little forward passing between the lines, which people go crazy about now. We talk about these midfielders. Oh, we can play between the lines. Hold on a minute. Brian Horton was doing that. Paddy Grealish was doing that. Numerous players, John McGovern at Forest in that era. It's just not a new phenomenon. They've always had players who could do both sides of the game.
And he was tough, wasn't he, tricky as well? I don't think I was there when he was there, but I had the impression that it gave me that he was in the mold of like Graham Souness or Jimmy Case. He would way into you and get stuck in.
100%. And again, he had another reputation of being a little bit naughty at times, but he wasn't. He was hard but fair. Yeah, and he'd put it on someone. If that person was going to put it on him, he'd do the same thing. And he had these eyes, Marv. And I always remember him playing for Port Vale. And I said to Nob, and he had these piercing eyes. you know, and he'd look through, like try to look into your soul as if to say, challenge you, you know, without meaning any harm or disrespect. And it wasn't so much verbals, he wouldn't give, but he'd look at you as if to say, you're going to come, do you want some of this? You know, and and that was Nobby in a nice way, you know, and it wasn't to do intimidate as an intimidation. He was that way. It was just him. It was part of his DNA. But in terms of courage, in terms of the ability to raise the team, to lift the team, him and Fozzie, fantastic. In terms of that personality that could unite, lift, inspire, and we'd all go as a man to war behind them. There was no reverse gear.
And the nickname Nobby, is that something you can tell us on here? I mean, what is that?
I've put in the book. I assume.
Oh, okay. Listen, I don't want you to say. Listen, I don't want you to say too much stuff.
It's fine. It's fine. No, because this is a relative question, Marvin. I guessed on what I believe it was. I believe it was from Nobby Styles. Right. From Nobby Styles, Man United and the World Cup, and manner of how Nobby was tenacious and aggressive and all action purpose midfielder. I assume that's where it came from. And that's what I've put in the book as well.
Okay.
Fantastic.
But again, I've mentioned Paddy, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
And, you know, those are the two. Fantastic.
So attacking your wide men, going, well, you start in the middle and go wide.
Yeah, this one I've got to get it into the team, even though that right side into out wasn't necessarily his forte, but he could play anywhere across that midfield. He was very technically gifted. He's probably one of the first people that I really looked and thought, he protects the ball in terms of shielding it, the ability to protect the ball using your arms and your body and keeping your arms in between the man and the ball more proficiently than most of the midfielders that I saw of that era. Talented, moving forward, play off both feet, had an eye for goal, very, very much a progressive passer, which I like in anyone. In a midfield player, particularly if it's not going to be the holding one, you have to be able to play progressively. Where he really excelled for me in his ability, again, to lead by example, ability to unite individuals. He was someone that anyone in the club could go to for advice. He had no airs, no graces. He would encourage, he had time for the young players. He had time for the older players.
Other clubs you've been at?
He played for Burnley also. He was an England under 21 international. He was of he's still in Luton now. He never left Luton in his career. Throughout his career, after his career was over, he played at Luton until he retired. He then managed a local team, which wasn't professionally, for a number of years in the Three Counties region.
No, you're gonna have to tell us. I'm done.
No way.
Oh, hold on. No.
Number of players that left Luton: Mark Burke, Ian Scott, Aaron Ty, Rob Johnson, Les Harriott would have played for him in this Three Counties side. We used to play against them most pre-seasons. Wow, when we were at
Hitchin.
You got the club.
Who's manager at Hitchin?
And manager at Hitchin for a number of years. Ex-captain at Luton. Was captain when they got promoted from the second division to the first division in 1974. Was captain when they it came down.
Andrew, and right, hold on. I'm just gonna divert. You're a fan, Andrew, and I'm a fan. But listen, you're a die-hard fan. You need to be bringing something to this state. Come on,
get over it.
You're a historian, Andrew. Come on.
I was still a glint in whoever's eye. Thank you very much. I can't remember this.
Andrew, have you not read Luton's 101-year history? You've seen the book that's there. Have you not got that?
I'm looking around. I think it actually is somewhere over here.
Right. So you would have stumbled on his name. You would have stumbled on his
name. Go on, Ricky. Give us a name.
Alan West.
Do you know what?
You know what? I was going to say that, but I thought, you know what? What confused me? I kept thinking, he was the centre back one. He not played the. But what I remember, what a lovely guy, and obviously, I mean, what a real everyone. I mean, such a lovely man. And I'm thinking Alan West. But I'm thinking he was a centre back, wasn't he not?
That's what. Do you know what? That's when my mind was. Alan West was a centre back,
attacking midfielder.
Really? Yeah.
I may have gone to school with his son as well.
That's right.
Sorry.
You stalker.
Sorry. Alan West. So I had Alan West down as a midfielder. Sorry, as a centre back. I don't know why.
I don't know. I had it in my head as a centre back, but he was a player, wasn't he, Ricky? I heard
proper player, proper footballer, silky. Before on those pitches that were terrible, when it wasn't renowned for players to have that craft. I mean, he grew up in Burnley were renowned in the early 70s for having the academy that everyone's talking, like Man City Academy now, or Chelsea Academy. Leighton James, Peter Noble, Alan West, a number of players that came through were developed at Burnley. They were the creative side. And Westy had all that style, charisma and panache, and wonderful man on top of that. Interesting point. He went to New Zealand one summer when he was a pro. I think I was first-year apprentice. And before he went, he was just a regular person, just a player. He came back and he was a born-again Christian, converted.
After going there?
Just one, the visit there with Kathy, who is his wife. And
really?
her parents lived out in New Zealand. He came back and he was always a great man anyway. But the little things that we used to do as players, Marv, as you know, the little nights out with the beer and the whatever else, the excessive stuff. And he just, born again. But he didn't change in any way, apart from just saying, I'm committing myself to God.
Yeah.
Great.
Wow. Yeah, and he started a church in Luton, hasn't he? I think he started a church in Luton. Yeah.
The fellowship in Luton and on London Road.
Yeah. Yes. So
that's my two.
That's your two. All right. Here we go. I'm going to get this one. You watch Marv.
Okay.
I reckon I will.
Last one. Left-footed. Heart. Big heart. Great timing of the pass. Great range of pass. Tenacious. Technically gifted.
I've got it.
Lovely sense of humour. Go on, Andrew.
I'm going to guess, right? Has he got a stand named after him at Kenilworth Road?
I don't know. I ain't been there for a while. You're asking the wrong person.
I mean, you got the wrong person.
Oh, it's not Minnie. I thought it was Minnie.
Well, it is, I didn't realise Minnie had a stand named after him. Okay, I was.
He's Minnie. Minnie Priest. David Priest.
It's Minnie. It's David Priest.
Told you I'd get it.
Andrew, you did. You did well.
David, he's got the corner.
You let him have it, Marv.
You know the corner between Kenilworth and the main stand, that bit up the top one?
Yeah.
It goes over the top of it. That's named after David Priest.
Okay, wonderful. Rightly so. Well, I mean, again.
I was going to lean more towards, obviously, I thought, let Andrew have a little bit, but I was still, when I was struggling a little bit.
Really? I thought you got Minnie straight away. And it's no disrespect to the others because, like I say, Lil Fucello, I could have easily picked Lil. I knew I came as a schoolboy and Lil was in the first team and doing great things there. Also, there was Raddy Antish. Again, Raddy was a quality midfielder, played left midfield, superb, contributed greatly to the side when he was in it every time. But Minnie was just someone who came as a young lad, and we saw his growth within that side. You know, we saw him blossom into the player that he became, the legend. I don't know how long he stayed at Luton before he left. 13 years, maybe. I don't know, Marv. You were there with him for a while.
11, 12, yeah. Could be
11,
easily.
right. Great servant, great player, you know, courageous with and without the ball in respects to, you know, demanding it and always wanting it and playing it. And for me, he shaded it there. Frank Bunn was another one that I'd like to give a great mention, and Wayne Turner, because Wayne had a spell where he came in, you know, the biggest regret of my career, Wayne played tremendously on that day against Everton in the semi-final at Villa Park, you know, when we lost 2-1. And Gary Parker likewise. But Gary and Wayne, also Gary, for me, because I was there and I was playing right midfield, Gary didn't get as many chances as he should have got in the side. You know, it was either me or him. I don't know why they couldn't play the two of us at times, but they preferred to play either or. But then Gary, Nobby went and got Gary, took him to Hull, had a great career, went to Forest, Leicester, and everywhere else, playing in cup finals. And Frank Bunn, likewise, another Diggs partner at Mrs. Goff's. He had a great career moving, you know, to Oldham, record goal scorer in the League Cup for that period. And these were great players in a great squad. And unfortunately, I can only pick Minnie or as the one that I would go in that team.
So how did Minnie compliment you? How did Minnie make you a better player?
Because his soccer IQ was such whereby, you know, he didn't have to think too long about what he was going to do. He would, before he got the ball, he would know what he was going to do with it. And I think part of my game and his game was about that speed of thought and the speed of the ball. And David Pleat always used to preach, you know, it's the speed of the ball that beats teams. It's not necessarily the speed of players. You know, you can have the fastest player in the world, but he can't, if he doesn't know where to run and when to run, it's non-effectual. It doesn't make any difference. But with Minnie and I think we had a football understanding similar to other players that are in the team that I'm going to speak about later, whereby that enhanced my game. I believe he'd feel that I enhanced his game. And I think we had a team spirit at that period of time whereby, you know, we were great mates. The whole team could go out, and we used to go out all the time. Straight after training, we'd go to snooker hall, you know, and there'd be nearly half the squad, if not more, would be just lounging around the snooker hall. We're playing there, playing crash, doing whatever else, having a laugh, running across the road to put our bet on in a betting shop. And it was just that environment that we grew up in. But it was like a wonderful time to be playing football at the club with wonderful people. So a great experience.
And I think I can chirp in a little bit, Rick, about for me, why I don't know why I think so many people have you in such a high esteem is that playing and actually seeing you at first hand, it was like, for me, Andrew, is like, it was effortless for Ricky. It wasn't like it was too easy, but it was like everything he did, it was just like the control, his movement, it was just so silky. And you're looking at him and I'm thinking, like, it's just like, it's just gliding sort of thing. And you know, in our terms, Ricky, as professionals, you weren't fighting with the, you weren't stiff or trying to fight with the ball. You were just like loose, so to speak. You know?
And, you know, it's only dawned on me, Marv, in regards to my evolution. I was probably one of the first black centre midfielders that played in that kind of passing, so, you know, that kind of main man type of thing. Black players are normally the centre forwards, the centre halves, the wing, the right or left back, you know, quite aggressive, or the wide ones, Franz Carr and Benno and different people like John Chidozie before them. And, you know, but I was one of the first like creative midfielders who was a kind of a cog of a team. Yeah. And then after me, Rocky, who played similar right hand side to in a little bit, and then Paul Davis came. And it was like Davo was then the next kind of generation. So
yeah, because I see somewhere, I read somewhere that Jamie Redknapp said you was the player he was modeling his. I mean, imagine that. I mean, again, listen, you're top player, but Jamie Redknapp again, Liverpool and England. He's saying like Ricky Hill was the one I was like aspiring to when I was growing up.
I spoke to Jamie 3 days ago about another incident, and he reminded me of that. Oh, he just said, Rick, I used to come with my next door neighbours, a Luton supporter, to come out and they used to idolise you. And then Harry endorsed it like 15 years ago. I met Harry, I saw Harry. He said, Ricky Hill, Ricky bloody Hill. He said, Jamie, everything goes, Ricky Hill this, Ricky Hill that, pictures on the wall when he was growing up. You know, that's that. Harry's telling me that. It's great. It's a great compliment to me that was there. But again, as you say, Marv, the thing that allowed me to do that, to play in that manner, was I had this ability inwardly to not care about mistakes. I had total amnesia when it came to or failing. It didn't bother me. I wanted to be involved in the game. I wanted to play. I wanted to affect the game. And if I messed up, I won't mess up next time. You know, where I would think my intelligence took me was, if I gave the ball away, I would ensure it hurt me, and I'd ensure next time I got it, I wouldn't give it away. But I'd always try to be progressive, but not reckless with it. You know, and I think that kind of helped me to think, well, hold on, I'm just going to go and express myself. Again, my teammates want me to do that. I had license to do that from my manager. You know, I got encouragement from my teammates, whether I was successful or whether I failed. So that enabled me to go and play that.
As a young lad, Rick, was you like that? I mean, again, I don't know who your youth team coach was. Was you like that from the get-go, that like, you know what, I'm just going to express myself, and you didn't have a coach saying, pass the ball, do this, but because there's so much. I mean, your coach, I'm a coach today. I mean, I coach girls over here, and I'm so big on girls. Listen, do not worry about making mistakes. I'm thinking now, right? I'll make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Like, listen, I will never shout at you. My best thing, you always say that, Coach Mom. I will never shout at you for just like, if you make a mistake. I'll shout at you, though, if the ball comes to you, you just boot it up in the air and you just kick it. I will come for you. I said, I will come for you.
Great advice, Mark, because ultimately, my philosophy was, and it has been, everyone who plays football plays it because they love it. From a young child, we fall in love with the game. We don't know where we're going to play. We don't know what position we're going to play, but we love football. We want to play football, and we make up. So when you become a professional or that love should never go. And you loved it because it was the ball. You didn't love it because I wanted to go and smash someone, or I'm going to head it, boot it 50 yards. You loved it because you wanted to have that interaction with the ball. So for me, this is another story. I haven't got this in the book, but the first time I ever saw someone lay cones down in terms of a coaching session was when I came to Luton at 15 years old, stroke 16.
Wow.
I had never been coached. I had never been taken to a coaching session where someone had put cones down and said, do this, do this, do this, do that, do that. It was all self-taught in the park with your mates, playing for Boys Brigade, playing for school, playing for that. And it was just that I taught myself by watching football and trying to take bits and pieces from all the best players that I saw. Pele headed like this. Bobby Moore did this. Johnny Giles passed off both feet. Eddie Gray dribbled by doing drag backs or step overs. Terry Cooper dribbled by driving someone and dropping his shoulder. George Best did this. Bobby Charlton shot off his left foot, right foot. And I took all of it like a computer and said, I want to do that. And I'd go and practice on my own because I love football. I didn't need company. I didn't need my mate up the road to say that. I didn't need my older brother, who was just as good as me, to come and play with me. I'd go and use the wall, back to front, and that was how I learned. That's how I developed my skills.
And that's proof in the pudding, because normally, I mean, you just mentioned your brother there. Did he not play at all? Because it's normally the older brother plays, and then the next brother down comes and watches and learns from him. And even though the older brother didn't quite have it, the younger brother got into him so early, got the detail. Yeah. Now he goes and makes it.
Yeah, my older brother, people said was better than me as a young age, right? So my older brother was left-footed. He played like Liam Brady. He got 3 university degrees. He's got a 2-1 at Oxford, plus a degree at Leicester, plus Liverpool, plus a degree at East Anglia. So he's bright. He's academic. He's bright. But in that era, clubs weren't inviting black players for trials. He was like nearly 3 years older than me, 2 and a bit years older than me. And there was other players that played with him that I grew up in awe of. I want to play like him, but they were never embraced by the system. And I mentioned it in the book in terms of the climate, how it's changed and how was I going to get in there? And it was just that, there was all different stereotypes going on about black people and what they could and couldn't do. And it was just that era. And he was just victim of that. He didn't have the passion that I had to play.
Yeah.
But he loved the game. He followed West Ham in their notorious days, home and away. He'd go. He loved football, but he didn't have that. This is what I want to do.
Right.
This is what I want to do. Whereas I did, and that was the difference.
Interesting. So moving on to your 4 players, we've got 3 up front, or kind of up front.
Yeah.
Let's wherever you like in any order. I'm going to get none of them.
I have to play with a target man because we've always played with a target man. Although we've played 2 small forwards at times with Brian and Paul. Initially, we started with Ron Futcher as a target man when I first got into the team. But then Ron left with his twin Paul, and then we had a number of players that came in after that as number 9s. This person, again, personality suited this team. Technically gifted, had a great football awareness in regards to knowing not only how you compete, but how you link everyone involved in the game. Being proficient back to goal, being proficient when he's on the move to take the ball and play, and then get himself into positive areas. He, occupied 2 central defenders all the time. No one could afford to go man for man with no cover behind or no assistance close by. So he was that focal point. He was great at receiving from long distances or in tight areas. He could also, speed of thought was good enough, more than good enough to be able to bring people into the game and recognize moves and patterns that was developing. And also brave as a lion, scored goals with both feet and his head. So I'm sure.
Go on, Andrew, you got it.
You're gonna.
I'm actually going to go curveball now because I'm not going to give the obvious answer. And the reason I know what the answer is, but the reason for this is I want to talk about international careers. So I'm going to guess Gary Lineker.
No.
Now, we'll get back to who it is because we all know who it is. But I just wanted to ask. So in terms of when you got the chance to go play for England, can you just talk us through the moment you got the phone call or the letter or how it kind of. Sorry.
Yeah.
The telegram back then, it could have been one had a note.
Some kind of
carrier pigeon, whichever one it was that got it to you. How first of all, can you just talk us through how that felt at that moment? Was it because a lot of players say it's one of the proudest moments of their lives?
The club get notified before we do. Okay. So the FA phone the club or send, as Miles said, a telegram, fax machine, I think at the time, through to them to let them know that I've been selected for the squad. The manager will then come down, pull me aside and say, Ricky, congratulations, they said, you've made it to the squad. I mean, without a doubt, one of the proudest moments of my life and my career, because it's the culmination of that first moment. The first moment when I fell in love with the game was by seeing Albert Johansson line up for Leeds versus Liverpool in the FA Cup final in 1965. And he was in a South African left winger, white kit, black person like me. And I transported myself into his body as that's me. I'm at that place. I didn't have no idea what it was, who the team was or whatever. Asked my brother who the team was, said Leeds United. Oh, great. That's my team. Still my team today. That was my team from that moment. But to then go through the whole progression of growing up in Brent, home of Wembley Stadium, you know, the mecca of world football.
Yeah.
Been to Wembley Arena as an 11-year-old, playing an under-14 final for the Metropolitan Police competition, evening standard tournament. 10,000 people there, scoring the winning goal at 1-0, I'm 11, under 14 game. Boom, next stage. Selling programs at Wembley Stadium as a 13-year-old. I'm supposed to be 15, but my brothers were going and my cousins were doing it. So they got me involved with a satchel underneath the tunnel. Leeds versus Liverpool, Charity Shield. So Wembley's always been a part of my life. And all of a sudden now, England, I'm one of the 23 best players in the country at a professional level that are born in England. And going even further than that, I'm one of the 5 or 6 midfielders that are selected at this moment in time. So all those things coming together, the journey culminating in that moment when you're selected makes you feel 10 foot tall. So it's wonderful.
Was it similar? I mean, similar to what it is now, maybe not because of the coverage, but was there wind? Did you get wind, even though you know you're not going to say, "Oh, I deserve to play for England," but did you get wind? Oh, I'm playing well, I could get a call up, or hear of any rumours that you could be in the squad?
No, none at all.
Nothing.
You know, again, I didn't know Bobby Robson, Sir Bobby, was such a big admirer. Again, I knew I had admirers. I knew Ron Greenwood. It was mooted that I might have had a late shout for the '82 World Cup when they took Trevor Brooking and Kevin Keegan when they both had injuries.
That's
going
right.
into the final. And they were talking about who could replace him of a similar style, offensive-wise, and my name was mentioned. And I believe, and I don't know how true it was, that Ron Greenwood had asked whether I could play in a testimonial at West Ham. But this was years before he became manager of England. So I knew that they admired me, but I never really spent time thinking, oh, I'm going to be involved in England. I remember I'm coming out of the old second division, Mark.
Right.
You know, I'm not even playing a game in the first division yet. But
Right.
I was playing at a level in that league, and yeah, people have said before that I was probably one of the 2 best players in the second division that weren't currently in the first division at that
Right.
time. You know, so it came out the blue. I was very grateful. It was wonderful to be amongst those, the ilk of those players at that time, you know, whether it was Trevor Francis, Ray Wilkins, Brian Robson, you know, midfield people, peers that I always held with esteem, but, you know, obviously respect, but also loved competing against them. Steve Copples, who else would have been there? Tony Morley, and obviously Big C, Cyril Regis, and Paul Mariner, Terry Butcher, you know, Peter Shilton, Ray Clements were the goalkeepers. You know, these are stalwarts and great people and great men. So it was a great feeling. I relished it. And again, going there with no fear. The same way that I approached my career all the way through from a child to professional, I went to the England camps with that same thought of mind. I'm not going to be inhibited. I'm going to show you this is how I play. This is what I do. And I think I'm disappointed that I didn't gain more caps, because I think my ability and the level of ability that I showed, even in the camps, was enough to suggest that, oh, he's worth more of a look than what we're giving him now. You know, give him a chance to establish himself. The one full game that I played against West Germany at Wembley, great game to play, iconic game. But I was asked to play right of a 4, which I'd never done in my whole career, ever. You know, I played afterwards when Ray Harford came in, but up to that point, I've never. So, you know, so Bobby liked the outside wingers who would go up and down in straight lines, possibly, where I was never a straight line guy. I was into out and all over the place. Yeah. So he said to me, Ricky, I know you don't play in that position, but would you mind if you could do a job for me there? You wouldn't mind doing it? I said, of course, Sir Bobby, you know, my pleasure. You give it a go, playing for England. And I think, you know, I equipped myself fairly well on the night, and well enough, you know, to be continually brought back to the squads. Continually, every time he had a squad, I was involved. I'd done well. He'd call David Pleat up apparently and say, I didn't realize Ricky Hill was so good at this. so good at that. I didn't realize. And Brian Singer, didn't realize they were that good. You know, so we had admirers, even amongst the national manager. And whether it was the small club syndrome that went against us, respectfully, when the press were pushing for the guys that were associated with the big clubs, the fan base, the Villas and the Liverpools and the Man United, and they got preference over us because of that. I don't know, but I'll never know. But it was an honour to be involved.
Yeah. Who's the best player you ever played with in England?
See, Glenn was my favourite player when I was growing up, Glenn Hoddle. I admired Glenn because, again, I saw similarities in how he played, the looseness of it, the way that he would manoeuvre the ball off both sides. He could use the outside of his left foot as equally as good as the outside of his right foot. You know, that kind of dexterity of his feet was tremendous. And I used to say, oh, yeah, Glenn, I used to admire his style, stylistically. I admired Ray Wilkins. You know, Ray, for me, got a raw deal in respects of people labelled him a negative type of passer. When Ray Wilkins broke into Chelsea's team and captained Chelsea's team at 17, 18 years old, he was that forward-thinking midfielder that run onto the end of things, shoot from long range off both feet, and very progressive in his passing. Obviously, Bobby Robson, you can't help but admire the tenacity, the quality, the all-round game that he brings, that verve for the game that could lift people just by watching him. So it was a great era to be involved in the game. I had different qualities to some. They had different qualities than me. But I think on the international side, David Peake once said, for him, to me in the dressing room, if he was the England manager, the midfield three he would play would be me, Brian Robson, and Glenn Hoddle. So that's what his midfield three narrow would have been. Now, David was before his time because he was playing with a three narrow, like Brian Clough did at Forest. But lots of teams played a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
You know, a basic 4-4-2.
So to answer my question, Glenn Hoddle?
Yeah. Glenn, yes.
Glenn Hoddle.
Glenn Hoddle.
Glenn Hoddle. So we get back to your striker up front, Marv, who
Mick
is...
Harford?
So your main target man up front is Mick Harford.
Yeah, Mick Harford. For sure. Great man, great friend, and great player.
Mr.
Like
Luton.
said, but not only that, but I think one of the biggest things, Ricky, what I think people didn't realise is that for his size, his touch, it was a joke, wasn't it? It was absolutely spot on. It's you know.
But I'm sure, I don't know if you had Mick on, but I'm sure.
Yeah, we had Mick. Yeah.
I'm sure because you know Mick had a few clubs before Luton, but I'm sure when he came to Luton, he found an environment that suited him down to the ground, with players and just the people that were there. You know, it was made for him as well. That environment.
Yeah.
He comes across as really quiet. Was he that way on the pitch? He wasn't, but in the dressing room, was he that way?
No, he's never loud.
No.
I don't think we had a lot of different personalities, a lot of different characters. Mick was one who could go either way. He could be quiet when necessary, or he could be amongst it when needed to be. But he was always be one that would be on the front foot if there was any kind of difficulty period whereby people were questioning our mettle, so we say, you know, as a team or individually. And that would be on the field or outside of the field. You know, he was that kind of strong, determined personality, but still had that softness, you know, and a gentle kind of aura to him, which I guess all the players could gravitate to, whether they were young or old. You know, I remember times at Luton in certain senior pros, the young players would be frightened to death of them. You know, you used to have to knock on the first team dressing room before you could go in, because the personalities were such whereby, you know, you get a volley and it wasn't sometimes said in a loving manner, you know. So
I was one of them. Don't worry, I was one of them. Trust me.
Right, Marv. You've been through it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've spoke about it before. Like, if you used to get everything done, tricks, before you pros came in, because if you were to go in that dressing room for whatever reason, you knew you weren't getting out for a long time. Not because obviously they're going to beat you up, but because it's going to be, Marv, can you go down the road and get me this? And it's like, you can't say no. I mean, they ran down the bottom of the road to get like a pasty for you lot and all that fuss. You used to get the money out and then go, Marv, go down the road. And the bus is leaving, Ricky. The bus is leaving for me to go. I had to run up there and walk up there. I couldn't turn around and go, no, Foz. I had to get the money and go.
That's your warm-up out the way, Marv. No, but you're right. It was an environment that you've either it built your character. Because
yes,
look at Yuki, it's a character building thing. It wasn't meant to be a bully thing, but
no, not once did I think it was bullying. Not once. That's the truth.
It was not for faint hearts, though.
Yeah, in today's net now, people might say, "Oh, that's being bullying."
Yeah, nothing at all. It was done in a loving, tough love.
Yes, that's what we call it.
Tough love. And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't hurt anyone.
No, definitely.
Right,
definitely.
Moving on,
right or left, either side of Mick.
Okay, so I'm going to put someone a little bit closer to Mick. So he's not totally on the right wing, but he's not, he's in the middle with Mick. He's just on the right-hand side.
All right.
And this person, again, someone that didn't have a traditional upbringing through the football fraternity, shall we say, of schoolboy player into apprenticeship, into professional environment. He's someone that came through the grassroots, came into Luton at a young age. Absolutely. Come in quickly, Marv. That's right.
I was giving you a chance. Andrew, I was waiting.
Come in quickly. Andrew, you shouldn't have waited, Andrew. You should have just said it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I remember I can't remember whose it was, but he's gone, Andrew said the name and he's gone, oh, come on, Marv, my back's hurting me carrying you here now. Marv, my back. Remember that, Andrew? I said, don't worry, I'll have my day. And look at it.
I will answer it properly. Brian Steen.
Absolutely. Brian Steen. And I'm omitting, before I speak about Brian, I'm omitting Paul Walsh, right? Who, again, what a player Paul Walsh was. And the only reason I'm taking Paul, again, I find it difficult to put him in, was the fact that the length of time that he's spent at the club and the success we had with these other players that resulted in championships and cup finals and whatever else. So for me, that's why sometimes other people get edged out and other people don't. But Paul was a fantastic person for ability. Look at how he was built and his size, to be able to do what he'd done, to have the career that he had, to play in the manner that he did was incredible. I was on the field with him, and of course, and my role was to get him the ball and then just watch the magic unfold. And the same with Brian. And then Paul, again, fearless, had a style about him that was not really seen that often in that era. Gary Shaw might have been another one that played that way. Peter Beardsley, obviously, and these are very creative. Paul Goddard had bits and pieces of that ability. But, again, I had to leave Paul out. I had to leave Steve White out, who carried, again, mainstay when we got that push for 4 years or 3 years to get out of the second division and first division. Steve led that line supremely well, channels into it, held it off, scored vital goals, quick, frightened people because he was athletically quick and had the endurance to go with it. Never let people rest, work people hard across the line, was not malicious, not nasty, but definitely someone that knew how to compete in a fair and proper manner. And again, great character, was a brunt of a lot of banter and jokes, took it great, came back because he was from the West Country. Chalky White used to call him, but he used to come back with his lines and it was just beautiful to witness. And then obviously Brian came when he came from Edgware Town. Imagine being coming to Edgware Town, and then like 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, you're playing at Main Road in the League Cup. Still developing, had no formal senior professional development program in terms of, you know, going into the gym and working in the gyms in the afternoon and doing all the laps that we used to do on a Tuesday, the half laps and the full laps to build your stamina. Brian came without all that, but still bit by bit put that pyramid in to him, develop that foundation of fitness along with his ability to beat people. I've wrote a passage in the book about Brian back to goal, how in my estimation, he was more dangerous at times with his back to goal than he was facing them, because people would think a back to goal, he's not going to get past me, he's nowhere. And he'd drop his shoulder, maneuver the ball with the outside of his other foot, spin and be gone. And the defenders would be frantically trying to scramble to drag him back. But where Brian and I really excelled was we both had a kind of understanding, a telepathy, whereby when I had the ball, instinctively I knew where Brian would be. You know, without, I might have checked, but I didn't need to, because I knew he would be in and around here. And all I had to do was get the ball to him away from the defender at the right pace and let him then protect it, which you never give it away cheaply, make the right option, or decide to dribble or use me again. And we developed this thing where it was kind of like poetry. It was just poetry in motion. It was just smooth and effortless. And we never once spoke about it. We just knew it was an understanding that was just born, you know, innate between the both of us. So for me, and Brian could finish. He could finish on his right foot, very clean. He could, you know, he'd pass the ball into the net. He'd shoot from long range. He'd use both feet, good in the air, brave. The amount of penalties that Brian got by putting his leg out, where I don't see the modern day footballer putting his leg out there. He'd put it knowing that the defender's not going to get the ball anymore. He's going to get his leg. And, you know, he'd just toe it, and then suddenly contact was made, penalty. And there he was. And then if he didn't fight for the ball to take the penalty because Mossy would have grabbed it first, then, you know, if Mossy wasn't there, he'd take it because he wanted the goals. It was all about goals. Likewise with Nick. But Brian was, and our relationship off the field was even tighter during that period than what it was on the field. You know, we're from London. We grew up from London, similar backgrounds, our parents. I was friends with all his family. He was friends with our family. I traveled up with him after I left Mrs. Goss, and I wasn't driving at the time. And Brian picked me up every day from my house in Cricklewood. So we just grew as brothers, you know. And then we obviously took Mark along with us, and Mark grew. And Mark is another one that, again, just because the length of time he stayed at Luton, or else he would have possibly been in there as well. My point is, you know, there's so many. Roy Wegerly, what talent he was, you know, as a footballer, as an artist of the game. And again, I can't get him in the side. So it's Brian and Nick at the moment for the two.
Okay.
So last position, last place
Andrew,
in the team.
Have to get this one, Andrew. Easy.
I'm going to go without even talking. You guys are going to.
No, you should have got it, Andrew. Come on.
Mossy.
You mentioned him.
There you go.
Oh,
David Moss. David Moss. Ernie, as we used to call him. Ernie Moss.
Ernie.
Yeah, Ernie was. He got that nickname, nickname. We were at, I can't remember, we were up north. No, it might have been Gillingham away, pre-season. And he was standing there. So we're in a line, the announcer's calling out who's playing. And we're inside, and the announcer says, right, you know, number 9, Bob Hatton, number 10, Brian Steen, number 11, Ernie Moss. We've all looked across the line. It was David Moss, but he called him Ernie. So from that moment, that name stuck with him. Or Mosser, you know, but Ernie or Mosser, you know, one of the two. Or Mossy. Again, ability-wise, he's another one. A jewel, a gem that David Pleat somehow unearthed. He'd been at Swindon for God knows how many years prior to coming to Luton. And suddenly from Swindon, he came to Luton. And here's this player that John Robinson is rightly given plaudits for his amazing ability, but I don't see that much difference between what John Robinson did for Forest and David Moss did for Luton. In fact, Mossy would have had the edge for me with his left foot. John Robinson might have had the edge in terms of his Romario, way to drag his shoulder and beat his defender. But in terms of the football IQ, both of them magnificent. David Moss, his range of pass with either foot, magnificent. I was a beneficiary of numerous cross-field diagonal passes where Mossy had put into the space where I would run beyond the left back or in between the centre halves. And they were on the money, waiting for me, dying as I got there to then go and move forward and shoot or to cross for someone else. So underappreciated in world football. And again, in the right environment, right time, Tony Morley, I know, was a great player, and he was in England's outlet as that left winger. And Tony was a more dynamic left winger than probably Mossy was. It was more skill and craft. But Mossy should have been in and around that England environment again, in my estimation. I'm only going on the fact that I trained and see him every day. I played with him, and I've gone to England squads and I've seen those players at close quarters. And I know that David had as much ability as those guys, if not more in some occasions. And in terms of penalties and finishing and free kicks, the creme de la creme.
Fantastic. So there we go. That is Ricky's best 11. So
can I, before I end, one last person. I have to.
Go on.
You can edit it in, please. Emeka Najobi. Emeka Najobi, in terms of he's the perfect example of, like Ian Wright, and the story of Ian Wright, whereby Ian Wright had 13 clubs turn him down before Crystal Palace took him, and his perseverance got him there. And what Ian Wright done was phenomenal. But Mecca was a further education student. His parents wouldn't let him play football. Left university at 23, 24, and played 3 weeks at Dulwich Hamlets before a new number of clubs wanted his signature. He then came to Luton, and again, straight away, the first session I had with Mecca, we went to Stopsley Gym, Marv, and we had the five-a-sides, and Mecca was on my team. And straight away, without knowing him, without seeing him play, we had this synergy and this understanding. I would know where he was, the way he protected the ball, the way he moved. And sad for me that his career became impeded and interrupted again through an injury, the same as Mike Saxby, which unfortunately was something that Mecca went undetected initially. And by the time it was detected, it was too late for it to be reformed. And that stopped him from possibly having an even greater impact on the game than he had, even though he had a great impact on the game, in my estimation.
And he played for his country, didn't he, as well? He was an international, didn't he?
He was Nigerian, wasn't he? Was he Nigerian?
Nigerian international. Yeah. Before John Fashanu and those that were going out there, Mecca was out there as an international player. And a quality
never did weights, and he was like a muscle, wasn't he?
Muscle on top of muscle, Marv.
Yes.
He had muscle growing on top of muscle. And the funny thing about that, where Mecca's concerned, he couldn't do one abdominal sit-up. He could not do one abdominal sit-up. He would be crying about, gaffer, no. But ripped, he had a 12-pack. He had muscles going on top of muscles, honestly, specimen. Like one of the loveliest men in football.
Yeah. And he's still in touch?
Unfortunately, we lose touch. People move. I've been abroad through time, and he's moved on. Last time we hooked up was at the reunion at the Luton Who 3 years ago, or 3 years this year. David Pleat's team of the 80s, and Mecca was there. It was great to see him. He's looking well, doing great. His family's all well, and he's still in the pharmaceutical business, where he is the agency, got an agency for.
Excellent.
Fabulous. So you picked your team. Here's your 11.
Yeah, who's going to lead them?
Who's your manager?
Oh, it's quite simple. I mean, It could only be one. Although, when you and I spoke, Marvin, you mentioned about Danny Bergara.
Yeah.
About you could have a youth team one. You could
Yes,
lead
exactly.
it. And again, Danny and David are the two people that I would credit as being the most influential for me to get my opportunity. Because unbeknown to many people, I was spotted, then I came for trials, and I was signed as a schoolboy player. And then at Easter, you have the trial for like the final trial before they take the apprenticeship, anyway, give the apprenticeship awards out. So I came to that trial at Easter, and kids from all over the place came and whatever. And I didn't do so well at that trial. And the standout player was Tim Smith. And Tim Smith was at Mrs. Goss with me in digs eventually, right? From Gloucester, mixed race, lovely boy. And Tim, unfortunately, one day Danny came, I digress slightly, but I just got to let you know this one, Mark. One day Danny came and we were in the boot room, we were doing our boots, and he pinched the back of our hamstrings, Tim and I's. And he kind of grabbed it, and we had shorts on, and he said, I think you need to lose a couple of pounds. And he said to Tim, I think you need to lose a couple of pounds. So, okay, Dan, you know, I'll train hard. You know, I mean, I wasn't too bothered about weight in them days, but I was an apprentice. Right. So I went home, didn't think nothing of it. Tim went home and said to Mrs. Goff, Mrs. G, I don't want to have this food anymore. Can you do me haddock and salad, whatever else, right? So he took it on board what Danny said to try and drop the weight. Anyway, long story short, I'm still having my normal stuff and cheese on toast at 9 o'clock, you know, put you to bed, Marv, the fizzy drinks in between, all the things we used to do. The penguin in the morning, biscuit. Anyway, Tim, from that moment, he started to lose weight, but with the weight, he started to lose his power. He started to not be the same player. And he started to then, and he developed a semi kind of food disorder, whereby he wouldn't eat whatever time, and then Mrs. G would have certain things, and he'd like binge eat afterwards, but then probably, and if there was one person out of that trial, 70 kids that they would have put their money on that he was going to make it, Tim was the one that deserved to be there. What happened, Tim played one first team game. He made his debut against Orient, 1976, I think. And I played with him. And then after that, he drifted. Unfortunately, he went to Wimbledon and he never got the career that he should have done. And it was not that it was Danny's fault or anyone's fault, but just, you know, the words sometimes that people take on and you go from there if you're not careful. But Danny said to me when I was an apprentice, and he pulled me one afternoon on the side of the track. He said, Ricky, he said, with what you have, I'd be amazed if you're not one of the best players in England in your position in a few years' time. He told me that, and I was a first year apprentice, Marv. And I'm like,
first year apprentice?
Yeah. You know, just because I hadn't signed my pro contract yet. So I was, you know, just coming up to 17, right? I was only been there 5 months. And he was all about skill. He would tell me, do this, do that. Anyway, so Dan would have been someone, but he left. He left in the year later when David got the job. He left with Harry Haslam to become first team coach with Harry Haslam. Oh. And David Pleat took over as manager. So Danny then went on to be a great manager at Stockport for many years and did well. But it has to be David Pleat because he was there at the beginning. He saw me in my very first game playing for my schools out in Hitchin. He was there, so was Danny, so was Ron McCrowan. He brought me in on a trial. He'd encouraged me, even when they weren't sure whether I was going to be a player, Marv, because I didn't get an apprenticeship when all the others did. Right. And again, I was partly to blame. Girls and side tractions, and Chelsea had come into me, scout, give me this, and my school teacher had said, you can get me to West Ham. And again, you know, when you're young, you don't know what to expect. And there's been no one before me. So I was kind of, should I, what am I doing? So they didn't give me an apprenticeship. And then one day, Harry Haslam called me. He said, they called me to play in a reserve game, a midweek reserve game. And I said to the secretary, oh, tell the gaffer, I've got a school event, I can't make it. And Sheila was the secretary. She goes, Rick, hold on, I think the gaffer wants to have a word with you. So Harry Haslam came to me, he goes, Ricky, he said, come along, play tonight. He says, you'll have plenty of time for school celebrations or presentations another time, come down and I'll speak to you after the game. And I played that night, and Godfrey Ingram played as well. And I played really well, Marv. And Brian Swain said to Harry Harrison, "Who's that?" Well, and Harrison said, "Please don't print anything. We haven't got him signed yet." All right. So he didn't sign it. So then that's when they offered me apprenticeship. And that was November. And my mum didn't want me to do it because she didn't think football was a career for me. I wasn't going to be any good at it. I might get injured, and what about your education, all that, you know. And my brother said, "Mum, he's good enough, let him do it." So, but David Pleat would be someone who was tailor-made stylistically to nurture my skill set that I had. So he would be the one that would lead out that team, and we'd win the Premiership with that team.
I reckon you would.
With this modern day football, I think we would, because at the moment teams just don't want to go for goals. They just want to contain until someone scores.
Yeah.
Different.
Yes, definitely. So, questions we like to ask next is regarding Luton, because obviously I'm a Luton fan, despite my appalling record at guessing. What's the best or the most memorable Luton game you've ever played in or been a part of?
There's a few memorable ones. Yeah, my debut's obviously memorable. The Everton semi-final defeat is memorable. It's the saddest memory, but it's memorable, albeit. It's got to be the Little Cup final, just from the most memorable, because it's 135 years of history of the club, looking to put a domestic trophy on the board, in the cabinet. It's the fact that right up until the Wednesday before that, I had no idea whether I'd be involved, because I'd received a broken leg at Goodison on Boxing Day, 1986. 97? When was the final? 88, right?
88, yeah.
88.
Yeah. So 1987. So I'd received a broken leg then. I had played no games. We'd lost to Wimbledon in the semi-final. We lost to Reading in the Simod Cup, all in a span of 3 weeks. And myself, Minnie, Mecca were injured, and we're fighting to try to become fit. And I had no idea whether I was going to be able to make it. So just for the mere fact that, because of Darren McDonald's unfortunate injury picked up during the week of that cup final, I then became possibly jettisoned closer towards Ray Harford's mindset and train of thought. And to get the call up for that game, even though I was, up to that time, I'd been heavily strapped in everything that I'd done. I had to have a heavy strapping on my ankle. The ankle was swell up after any activity and before, but I was prepared to, I don't want to miss that day. I've been at the club 13 years. This is a day at Wembley. It's another chance to go home for me, the Borough of Brent, cup final with Luton Town. So from a memorable standpoint, great. Was it my finest performance? Of course not. I was just glad that I was there. I'm glad I tried to coach myself to do the simple things well. Don't try anything too ridiculous, play within it. And I was glad that I managed to see the whole 90 minutes through, and ultimately the side become victorious. And it was deserved for not only the players and the staff, obviously, but the supporters as well, because the supporters have been magnificent to me throughout my whole time at Luton Town Football Club. So to give them that moment was exceptional. And then to go back the following year for another day out, albeit it didn't end the way we wanted it to be, was another wonderful memory.
I remember that because I was in a squad for the final stuff. So you didn't play no games, did you? I mean, leading up to the game, I remember the time. It's a case where you knew you eventually using the play, and you had nothing behind you, and just again, like you said, you got through the game. I mean, you wasn't like woeful, you wasn't outstanding, but like you kept things simple, and you just kept things ticking along, and it must be great. I mean, because I know I look back now and think, I mean, yes, I'm thankful and grateful that I had a career, but I didn't, let alone play in a cup final of any sort. You played in a cup final and won, which again is fantastic in the memory for the club throughout history.
Yeah, absolutely, Marv.
Fantastic. So we also like to ask now what you're up to, what you're currently doing. And I know, as I mentioned at the start of the pod, you've got a book coming out on the 15th of March, which those people on YouTube can have a look right now. Looking very beautiful as a game show host there.
It looks no different. It looks no different. It's like Benjamin Button.
I've dyed my hair this colour, Mark, just to be trendy.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the book, and also what kind of inspired you or made you want to write a book?
It's a great question, Andrew, because I've never really thought about ever writing a book. You know, I'm a pretty private person. Marv will tell you, I'm not one of those that will be at the front voicing, expressing my opinions about anything, or, you know, too outlandish in terms of my character. I'm just pretty much standard, bog standard. I'll join in when necessary. I'll step out again. I'll join us. So it's never really appealed to me to put my life out there for public consumption, shall we say, you know, warts and all. But then when I left Luton as the manager, I look back now and I think back, I had no real, I just kind of slid away in the darkness of the night. I had no real PR offense or defense. You know, I see now people come out and make a statement, you know, straight away, you know, this, that, and the other, whether it's right or wrong, the LMA make a statement and off you go. So your name's still out there. I didn't have anyone who was going to fight my corner, irrespective of, you know, it was a short period of time. And it was one of those things that happened. So I thought, and then social media comes along now, and I'm not a big on social media. And I got a friend in Florida. He says, yeah, you got to get on Twitter. You got to get on Facebook or Insta. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. He said, no, do it. Get on Twitter. I'll man it for you. You don't have to do it, but I'll man it for you. Great way to interact and get back in. I said, no. And so he's gone through. He says, listen, there's these certain things that people will say about you. And he's looked up on the thing and he's going, yeah, all warts and all, great guy, legend, this, that. And then one came out, it says, absolute horrible manager. So I go, okay. So this is what was on the whichever Twitter thing it was. So, and I thought, hold on a minute. I don't know this person. He's behind his keyboard. He's obviously got his own opinion, but in my estimation, it's the wrong opinion, because as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to judge me on 4 months at Luton, then you're as bad as, yeah, you're I shouldn't even validate your
opinion,
your response with opinion, right, Andrew? So, but I thought, you know what, that hasn't been told. It is part of my journey, you know, for the mere fact of I had 15 years as a player. I've given, you know, a large part of my career as a player, and then to go back as a manager during times which were difficult. Marv was there at the time, so he would know. Administration came from the club, new consortium coming in. It was turmoil going on at the club, and then to be judged on that, and then not have any real support from outside when people have said, well, hold on a minute, you know, it's been there 4 months. What do you expect from 4 months, you know? And, you know, when I hear Arsene Wenger say about Glenn Hoddle when he got fired at Tottenham, you know, he had 3.5 years. Arsene Wenger said he needed a little bit more time. You know, you got Frank Lampard now at Chelsea, and he's had 18 months. He didn't have long enough. But, you know, Frank's had 4 times as much as I had. But I don't see anyone having that empathy of my journey. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to put down the catalogue of what took place in that, within the book, so people can understand. And again, it's my truth. And whether people don't want to accept that truth, but it is my truth. And the fact that within the book, it also charts my coaching successes abroad. Everywhere I've been, I've managed to take that team that I've been with to the national final, whichever final that is, you know. And normally in America, it's the playoffs and then finals, Marv, right? Yeah. Playoffs then finals. So I've done that. I went to Trinidad. I took the team in Trinidad to the quarterfinals of the Champions League in the CONCACAF region. First time and only time in their history. I won 4 trophies out of the possible 5 in 1 year with the team in Trinidad. So people don't recognize or don't appreciate my body of work as a coach of what I've done because of the 4 months of Luton. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to just express people to know that it's there. Plus the background, my background, it's Not
And sorry
no.
to interrupt you there, Rick. Can I just jump in there? And I have
Yeah.
mentioned it on the podcast, and everyone who's listening, you can go back and listen to him. Did say I was the player back at that time, and I didn't. I mean, again, I loved you as a player, and I loved you as a man. So I wanted to, obviously, you to succeed, and it didn't help things. I had a lot of injuries, and I had setbacks. But I did say at the time, and I have said now, that you was ahead of your time. You had a fitness. You had Daley Thompson, who you brought in to help us. You was talking about food and diet way before anyone else was. So for me, I said, look, and we had young kids. There was no senior pros. There was myself, and and that's difficult to do that when you haven't got the resources which other people have got. And I've said that, like, everything that it was difficult for Ricky. Yes,
it's common sense, Mark. You know, and particularly if you're gauging it on a short span, a time frame like that, it's ridiculous because nothing changes overnight. You know, football development. You know, talk about Klopp and all those. It's 3 years or 4 years it took Klopp to win the Premier League, and that's with Liverpool, with outstanding players. And as you say, not disrespectful to the players that were there, but they were young kids. There was 15 out of 19 that had come up through the Luton ranks in a 19-man squad. When I was apprentice at Luton, there was 24 apprentices. There was 12 in each group. I'm the only one that played more than 2 games, right, out of 24. But this is what we had at Luton at the time. So for me, that would have been appreciative if, you know, respectfully, people took that and said, well, yeah, you're right. It wasn't the right place, wrong time. That's how I look at it. Right place, wrong time. But it hasn't deterred me. And post that, my body of work has suggested, you know, it has been that. Also, in the book, which is going to be the first time that I've spoken about it, is my heritage. I'm Indian descent in terms of, you know, they talk about Asian footballers. So my dad's Indian. My great grandfather was born in Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh in India. He went to Jamaica to work an apprenticeship 5-year program to work the land of a vinery for a J.W. Hill. Whilst he was at the land with his partner, my great grandmother, they had their first child, which is my dad's dad, which is my grandfather. His name's Gucharan, but they registered him in the land that they were working on, J.W. Hill. So his name is John Hill, but really the family name is Suki. So I'm a descendant of the Hill lineage that was given just from the register. My dad then, my granddad then had my great-grandfather had 6 more children, and they were all named Suki. Their surnames. So only the first one was named Hill. The next 5 were named Suki. So then the Hill descendants lineage went down here. My grandfather had 11. And out of them 11 children, all in Jamaica, at the end of the time in Jamaica, 5 years, they decided they could either go back to India or they can make a life in Jamaica. They had 2 children at that time. They said, we'd have a better prospect in Jamaica. They then had 11. Every one of the 11 married someone from an Indian ancestry, apart from my dad, who married a black Jamaican. So I'm kind of half Indian, and all that's in the book. And, you know, pictures of my dad, which no one ever seen, and whatever else. So, yeah, it's another little gem.
Sounds absolutely. I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm going to jump on and try and see if I get it in Australia. So that's Love of the Game, which is out on the 15th of March. And as Ricky's mentioned to us, that he's more than happy to do some personalized things and stuff like that. So just DM him on Twitter or send him across an email, provide his email address. So Ricky A. Hill at hotmail.com. Yes, Ricky, sorry.
Initially, it's those who haven't yet purchased the books and want to purchase the book. They can DM me and message me, at my Hotmail, and then I can sort out the personal message. Those who have already purchased the book already, unfortunately have to wait until I do the book signings in and around Luton, or after the book's just been released, I can get to them then.
Fantastic. Right. And they'll be able to find out all that type of stuff on your Twitter page, and I'm sure on a number of other places as well. There'll be billboards up once the lockdown gets lifted in the UK. We have a few questions for you, Ricky, if you don't mind.
Yes.
We've got a few questions from our fans.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Over to you, Marv.
I mean, we can both ask them. I mean, I think you mentioned it earlier on about Leeds. Where is that guy? What's his name? I want to read his name out because I want to give him some love. Let's see the Leeds question.
Philip Rayner.
Philip Rayner, that's it. Philip Rayner. What he says: why is Leeds United still the first team above the mighty Hatters? And the result you look for, Ricky?
Because it was the first team that helped me fall in love with the game. It had someone that looked like me in their kit. And as a young child, it's that vision that ignites the flame. And if without that vision, I would have possibly felt that I would never become a footballer. I was 6 years old. But because of that vision, I saw someone, I thought, this is possible. It's achievable. My dream begun. And thankfully for me, during that era when I was growing up, Leeds were the team. Not only was the kit spectacular, the football was spectacular, the style was spectacular. We were innovative. We were in European Cup finals. We were in First Cup finals. We were competing for the league all the time. We had the type of players that any team at that era would want from Leeds United. So it kind of was something that the foundation was there. It was built on. It's hard to break. I could never see myself supporting another team the way that I do look out for Leeds. So that's why, Philip.
So you're happy right now then?
I'm happy right now. Yeah, I mean,
back where they belong, according to a lot of Leeds fans.
Good or bad times, Andrew. I still look out for them and support them, and I think they're a wonderful club.
A true fan. We've got a question here from Nick Pearce, who actually would like, if it's okay for you, to give just a shout out or a hello to his uncle, Philip Goodman, who's currently struggling with muscular dystrophy. And he actually named his first child after you, Ricky.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So he named his first child after you. So if you could just say a quick hello to Philip Goodman, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. Philip, hi, mate. Thank you for all the many years of support. Really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the honor of naming your son after me. Really, really humbling. I hope you can get better quickly. I hope you're still keeping your spirits up, and look forward to hopefully when this lockdown elapses, we can maybe arrange to get together and have a conversation. But good luck for the future. Take care.
Brilliant. Fantastic. We've got another one here from Stephen Betts. I don't want you answering this one if it's in the book. The answer's in the book, mind you. So Stephen Betts is asking, what was the main lesson you learned when you managed the club, and would you consider working for the club again in some capacity?
The main lesson, I don't know if it's an individual lesson that I've learned in terms of what I would do differently. I don't think I would have done anything differently to what I'd done whilst I've gone there with the tools that were at my disposal. I would possibly, one thing I would have done is signed a contract, because Stephen, unbeknown to many people, in the 4 months that I was there, I never signed a contract. I never saw a contract. So that was kind of an unscrupulous way to do business. You know, I went there in good faith, expecting to see a contract, and the people that were running the club, you know, they were always having an excuse as to why the contract never materialized. So that naivety, because of the love I had for the club and the desire to go back and help assist the club get back onto past glories, kind of clouded my better judgment, shall I say, for not going with an agent who would take care of that thing, and I would not step foot in the club without having a contract signed, sealed and delivered. But from a technical standpoint, again, I've never been one who has really been totally adverse to working with staff that have been previously there. It's never really bothered me before. I've always given people an opportunity to earn a living because they want. I hate to disrupt anyone's livelihood, but by only bringing one person with me, I felt it took a lot of time for people to really grasp what they should have been doing in respects to, just respectfully, Lenny, it's gone. Even though you have sympathy for someone that you've worked with, there is a new sheriff in town and we all got to try to work together to uplift the club. And I didn't think that everyone was pulling off the same page at that time. So I've never been one that has said, well, a new manager comes in and brings his 6 staff with him. I'd never really agreed to that. But now in hindsight, perhaps I would have asked to bring more than one person with me at that stage as well. And whether it would have made a difference or not, it remains to be seen. But again, that's just something you learn. You live and learn by.
Yeah. And there you go. I was a player at the club at the time. I didn't know until you've just said now that you didn't have a contract. See, that in itself is, I didn't know that you didn't have a contract. Yeah. I just know now.
It was agreed. Everything's. I had a letter of intent, but it never materialized. It was never. I never saw it.
Wow. One final question. We've got time for all the questions. We've got to thank you to all the people who've sent them in. This is from James Bacon, and he asked, man for man, in terms of ability wise, was the 79-83 squad or the kind of a Littlewoods Cup 87-88 squad, which one do you think was better ability wise as a squad? So you don't have to pick names, but ability wise.
That's an unfair question. Who asked that question?
James Bacon. So James Bacon. So feel free to.
James, out of order. That's a terrible question. I think stylistically, the 79-83 was the aesthetically more beautiful team to play in, even though the other era, 83-87, also was great and we played some wonderful football. But I just felt that second division period where, we went in every time to go and win, and no matter where it was, and score and go gung-ho. And we came so close on two occasions, right to the wire, and then fell away or someone picked us to it. And then to get there and that last third period where I don't think, if we didn't manage it at that era where we blew when Nobby came and we won the league by X amount, record points and record goals and whatever else, if we hadn't have done it then, I'm sure a number of us would have left Luton a lot quicker. I don't think the club would have been able to hold on to us at that stage. So I think from that perspective alone, even though we were successful in the Littlewoods Cup and we went back to another final and we got to semi-finals, we got to the quarterfinals with the other team, I just think because of the struggle and because of the evolution of the club at that time with David Pleat, I'd have to edge the first era as the one that for me was better for me personally as well.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Great question. Yeah. Even though it's difficult, great question. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our fans for all of those. Great to hear from you. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and Marv to Ricky for taking part in this podcast. And that was Ricky Hill's My Best 11. Thank you so much for your time, Ricky.
Cheers, Ricky.
My pleasure, Andrew. My pleasure, Marvellous.